What's up, Cybernex, and welcome to a very special tutorial today, because this is like one of the first React tutorials I'm doing on this channel to kickstart the React part of this YouTube channel. If you came to this tutorial because you're interested in React, you most likely noticed that there's a lot of Angular content on this, but I'm now also expanding to React. So what we're gonna do today is we built a super simple React web application using create React app template. We're gonna add a login page and a dashboard page, just a bit of routing, a bit of elements, just to get a nice feeling of some React basics. And then we're gonna take things a step further and bring this basic React web application into a mobile application using Capacitor. It's gonna be super easy, and you're gonna have a mobile application that just works great in like 5, probably just 3 minutes. On top of that, we will also add Ionic UI in the end, just to show you what I prefer for the UI and what Ionic brings to the table in terms of great adaptive styling. This is certainly not something you have to do, so Ionic and Capacitor is not tied together. You can just use Capacitor with a React application if you already have like Chakra UI, Material UI, anything else for the UI of your React application. It's just that Ionic makes it really easy to build great native looking mobile interfaces, and you can also transform them to the web and make it look nice or decent, at least on the web. Anyway, without further ado, I'm super excited, so let's dive into the React application and build a mobile application based on React web code. Alright, let's begin with a simple React application by calling npx create React app, and I'm gonna name this one Capacitor app, and I'm gonna use the TypeScript template simply because I come from the Angular world, so the TypeScript template just makes sense to me. You can check it out here as well. It's pretty much still a very basic template, so it doesn't really enforce a lot of things. Now you can go into your new app and then also install the React Router DOM, because we need a little way to navigate around in our application, and this package will serve us well. So let's run npm run start now to bring up our live reload server, which should come up, and there we go. The application is loading, and hopefully, yes, we got our application up here. Cool. So let's put this to the side. Actually, maybe we're gonna just put it here so Mike can head be there. That shouldn't be an issue. Let's make this a bit smaller, and then we can continue. Now, what we're gonna do is we wanna build a simple login page. So for that, we're gonna have to change a few of our files and add a bit of routing. Let's first of all check out what we got so far. We got an index.tsx file, which currently only renders our app file right here inside the strict mode. If we check out the app, we see exactly what we see on our screen: edit code and save to reload. So I can just remove this, and we should see, yes, this is actually what we're editing. Now, to structure this a bit more, let's add a new folder in our source folder, and we can just call this one routes. We could also name it probably components, but routes should work fine. Within, we're gonna add the login tsx, and we're gonna add the dashboard tsx. Yeah, you complain, you're gonna be happy in a second. Now, for the login, the only thing we wanna do, and actually same for the dashboard, is add one function login, which pretty much returns an empty whatever. We can just call login in here, and then we're gonna add export default login, and then the whole file should be fine. Cool. We're gonna do the same for the dashboard, only that we now rename this part to dashboard. Of course, it's the dashboard, and then at least the compiler is happy. Now we want to set up these pages, routes, whatever we want to call them, in our application. So first of all, we're going to head over to our index.html, and we're going to change a lot in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up the routes for the browser router. There we go. This is the surrounding element. Now within, we define our routes, basically all the path that people could navigate to within our application. And if I had some indentation, that would be cool, Visual Studio. No, doesn't matter. We're gonna go ahead and add the actual routes now. So if we check out the imports, we see everything comes from the React Router DOM, the package that we just installed in the beginning. So we're gonna just start with the first path. This will be just the slash path, basically the home path. And we're gonna supply an element to this, which, guess what, is our app now. We could have a different setup, and we certainly don't want to have it look like this, so we can directly close it in here. So we have our one route in here. Now, if we save this and refresh this, actually it doesn't really change anything so far, because it's loading for the slash the app element. And if we check out app, well, that's pretty much this one. Only if I now go ahead and change something, yeah, then we got a problem. And now we only got the image. So that means our app is actually already displayed at this point. Now, what I want to do now is we don't really need all the things in here. The only thing I want to keep in here is a little style. So we're going to use the app basically as the wrapper around our other components. And for the style, I'm going to add margin. Actually, we don't need these now. Margin of whatever, just a bit of margin. Then we're going to go rid of this. And now the important part is I'm going to add a header. No, that's actually not really the important part. The important part comes in the app in a second. So we're going to call this Simon's app. We're going to remove all of this. Actually, we could, well, let's keep the app CSS. And we add an outlet in here, also coming from the React Router DOM package. So that means all the other routes that are resolved by the router are displayed in this one outlet right here. And we see already H1 Simon's app appears. So that means we just need to define the different path in or below that parent route. So let's do this. Let's create another route, and we're gonna give this no path at all. So empty, because we're gonna use the login element on this route. The login doesn't really have any specific URL, so we can just render it directly in here. I'm gonna go with the login and directly closing it. And now we already see our login appear here. That's how the React Router works. It's pretty easy actually to use it. So the router basically looks at slash, okay, I'm gonna render app. Is there any other component after a slash? No, there's nothing. Okay, so let's do the login, and we're gonna render this in the outlet that we defined in the app TSX. Boom, it's as easy as that. We can now pretty much just change this to dashboard, and then we would render the dashboard in here. Nothing fancy at all. So let's keep it to the login, and let's just define another path. So this is just whatever you want. I will just call this like app dashboard, just to have some kind of fun in here. And then please add the import for the dashboard. And now we could already navigate around. So I can now go to /app/dashboard, and it would display the dashboard. So this is the URL, you can trust me. Yeah, it's there. And I can go back to the login. Now, if you also want to have something like a fallback route, you can also just edit it. You would catch all the other path with a wildcard in here and then display whatever content, or so you can just do a 404 page and use that as the element. I just did a super quick and easy way using directly the HTML in here and using link as well from the React Router DOM package. So this easily links us back to our login page. So that means if I go to blah, 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 we see the 404 page, once again, rendered below our title, then I can go back home. Okay, cool. That's the routing, everything that we need. That means we can access our login and we can access the dashboard. So let's take this a step further and implement a somewhat useful login component. Now, for the login, we can just get rid of, actually we can get rid of most of the things here. So I'm gonna just give this a little style and align everything in the center. Text, align, center. And then we're gonna put in login up here and a form component. Now the onSubmit of the form should call an appropriate function. So we're gonna just add a new function, const onSubmit, and this one will or should usually handle whatever you want to do on the submit. You could also use a React package to catch the input fields. We will not connect it now because we also don't really have a backend, so we just use this fake way and pass in our onSubmit function. We'll just put a login here, submit, and then I'm gonna just make it a bit bigger so we can once see this. Thanks for the information. There we go. Actually, we can pretty much keep it still like this. Okay, and then for the form, to actually submit the form, we might need a button. So let's use this and add the type submit. If you have a button with the type submit inside of a form, it will trigger the onSubmit action. So there we go, we got login, we press login, and the page refreshes and the log instantly disappears. You can, for like a millisecond, see submit. That's because we should actually prevent the event default. So there we go, event.prevent default, because usually it tries to submit some kind of information within a form to a server or route. So if we prevent that from the event, we can finally see our log up there. That's a lot better. Now, probably we also wanna, we maybe wanna show some kind of loading while we click on login. Normally, of course, while the request to the API takes place, since we don't have it, we're gonna just fake it. And for this, we're gonna use the useState hook. So we go ahead with loading and set loading. So the state in the function from useState. There we go. And initially, this will be false. Now, if we are in this function, we're gonna immediately call setLoading true, and once we're finished, we will set it back to false. Now we will actually set this back after a little timeout, so we can just fake the API call. Let's do like 1.5 seconds, that should be fine. And then in here, we're gonna set this back to false. And actually at this point, you would route the user forward to the inside area if you have a real login. In our case, we don't need to check any token or any response for the server, so we can just use the navigate function. Actually, no, we don't want to use it like that. Actually, want to use const navigate and use navigate. So we can get rid of this again, and we should fix this. And then it's just calling the right URL. Navigate to, we can pass some options. No, we don't really need options. In this case, we want to navigate simply to app/dashboard. Let's try if this already works. So I press login, and after 1.5 seconds, I'm actually at the dashboard. Cool, that's pretty cool. Can we have something like replace? Yeah, let's try. That could be cool. Actually, for testing, this is not really cool, but let's see. Yeah, that's fine. I don't think we need it. Let's just get rid of it. Don't want to confuse you too much today. So we got submit, we got loading. Let's also use the loading. So we can do this in front of our button here. If we're currently loading, we're gonna display div loading. So this is really like the worst experience of a login ever. In the other case, we're gonna display our button, and boom, there we go. We can press login, loading, and we're on the dashboard. Now we just need input elements. So I'm gonna just bring in 2 div elements for an email. And why is there no formatting? Just format the document. It's not that hard. Format document with whatever. Just use anything that formats the code. Okay, that worked pretty good. I should set that as the default format, huh? What was that? Format document with. Yeah, I don't know why it appears twice. I don't want to complain. Anyway, we got 2 input fields. In fact, this doesn't really look good. If you want to surround it with a tiny bit better styling, you could have like a flex layout surround your elements. So then it would look on a small screen, it will actually look pretty much as horrible as before. But we pretty much don't need this, so this could actually kind of work. In that case, we would use display flex, the flex direction column, not rows, because then we would have each element next to the other, and we can align the items in the center and have a little gap between the flex elements. So then we'll take those two, or actually three, as flex and align them below each other. Great. Let's keep up the pace and finish the dashboard. For the dashboard, we once again just gonna don't do anything specific. I'm just gonna add the navigate again, or yeah, we can also do it in a different kind of way. Let's do it like this. Let's do an H2 dashboard, and below that H2, do we need actually an empty element in that case? No, I don't think so. Let's move to the dashboard, and below the dashboard, we're gonna use once again the link, which will bring us back. Oh, it's not link. It's what was it name? Forgot about this. I used this in the index. It's two. I forgot this. Sorry about this. Link to, and we just want to link to slash. So I'm gonna call this back to login. Did it add the import? It did. It doesn't really like this. Yeah. So I'm gonna add an empty fragment above, which surrounds our stuff in here, and then everyone's happy and we can go back to login. Okay, this is like the best application ever done with React. We got a login and we can go to the inside area. That's pretty cool. When I got started with programming, this was always like my question. So how can I build a login? Because pretty much every idea I had started with a login. I was already lost at that point. So now you got a super easy login. Yeah, you need a backend. Yeah, you need security and protection of the inside roads, but it's a start. Okay, now imagine this was your application in a good looking way and you now wanted to bring this to a mobile application. What we can do is we can learn React Native, which is kind of different and we would have to rewrite a lot of things, or we can just use Capacitor. Capacitor comes from the Ionic team. The Ionic framework, you've probably heard this as like somewhat of a competitor to React Native, but actually Capacitor, it can be used on its own. It's not really related to Ionic and is comparable to Cordova. It's like the successor of Cordova. And we can easily drop it, add it to our application, and we're gonna do this to quickly build a mobile application. It will just wrap our web application inside the native WK web view in iOS and Android web view, which is very performant. We're going to talk about this in the end. And through that, you could also use native functionality, geolocation, camera, whatever you want. We're going to not do that today. If you're interested in using Capacitor native stuff with React, just drop me a comment and I'm going to for sure create something about this in the near future. Now, let's get started by installing, first of all, the Capacitor CLI as a development dependency. So we can then check out our package.json and we should see it somewhere down here. If you don't want to do this, you can also just call it with npx. So we're gonna go with npx cap init. This will initialize Capacitor in our repository. I'm just gonna keep the name, I'm gonna keep the package ID. You don't really need to worry about this in the beginning, but what this does is it creates a Capacitor config file at the root of your project. And this now contains your app ID, the app name, the web directory. That's actually one of the most interesting places that we're gonna have to explore, and then bundle web runtime false. So we don't wanna bundle this with our application. The web dir is the folder Capacitor looks for. That's the build of your application. So you can just run npm run build, which should, in this create React app template, generate a build folder of your application with everything necessary. So the Capacitor config with build here is already pointing to the right directory. That's great, because now we can add the native platforms. To do this, we first of all want to install the Capacitor core package, the Capacitor iOS package, and the Capacitor Android package. So of course, if you only want Android, you don't really need the iOS package, but I assume if you can, why not target all the platforms? And once you got this, you can add the platform. So npx cap add iOS will now generate a native iOS project right here in your project. And the same for npx cap add Android. I see it's blazing fast today. Let's make this a bit bigger. We don't want to see the app right now. So now we got an iOS and an Android folder, and you can open this with the native tooling, which is Xcode. Do I have an Xcode open? No. Android Studio for the Android application, and Xcode, you can get it from the App Store on your Mac for iOS. And also, you really don't need to touch anything. You can just run npx cap open iOS, and it will open your native iOS project. There we go. This is an Xcode project. If you haven't seen this before, if you want to build your application later for a real device, I think you still need to be enrolled in the developer program, because I usually, when I want to build on my iPhone, I usually need to select the right signing team here. So this is little like another step that you can take, but you don't really have to if you're just starting out and just want to test a few things. Which side do I want to put the phone? I don't know. Let's put it here, and boom, there is our application. This is so cool. I really like this about Capacitor. This took out like, yeah, we're 20 minutes in this tutorial. We had the introduction and the rec part and the Capacitor part. This took us like 5 minutes. Yes, it's not perfect yet. We can see it looks horrible, but we see that our React code is here. It works. It just works. This is a native application. People would probably note that this is not a real native application because it looks somewhat horrible, but it is. Okay, now we want to fix this, what's going on here in the application, so we can have at least the ugly looking stuff that we got here in a good looking way, and then we want to make it look even better. But before we do those cool things, we're gonna do another thing, and that is to add live reload to this application, because I don't want to go through the reload and deploy yada all the time. So what I want to do instead is I want to grab my local IP with a like IP config on the Mac. On Windows, I think you can also run ipconfig, and then head over to the Capacitor config again. And we're gonna add a block called server in here, and we're gonna add a URL. This will be http:// our IP, and then the port of the running application. So for the default, this was 3K. And because we don't have SSL certificate locally, we need to set clear text to true. This is required for Androids, otherwise Android might complain. Now, if we do any changes in our project, if we rebuild the code, we can just run cap copy. This will copy over, let's do this a bit bigger. This will copy over the web assets from build to Android app source main, assets public, cap copy for iOS, copying over to whatever. However, if we make changes to the config or to any plugins used, we're gonna run cap sync. This is like a step above copy, because this will also run pod install. If you're familiar with native iOS development, pods are like NPM packages. Same for Android. It will just install a few more things and also sync the changes from the Capacitor config. So now let me redeploy this again. No, I want to still, what's this? iPhone 13 Pro. Yes, let's put this a bit to the side. Is there a way to make this bigger? Like, yeah, well, probably not. Anyhow, let's go back to whatever file we're on the login. So let's change this login test. And we immediately see this is something I like about React a lot, because this is even faster than the Angular reload that I'm used to from Angular project. So that means we can do now whatever we want in here, work on our application, and got live reload. We could even inspect this in the browser. It's really that easy. Now onto the fix. For that fix, the live reload actually won't work that great, because we need to apply a change in the index HTML of our project. And what we want to do is we want to add viewport fit equals cover. As far as I know, this required. Yeah, the change of the index HTML usually is not picked up. So why actually? I think maybe we just need to restart our live reload server, and then we can probably just reload the application, because that could work probably. So is this still working? The app seems to be up and running. Let's try. Yeah. Whatever. I'm just gonna redeploy it. Doesn't matter. It's really that fast. But this is anyway not the whole fix, because this only enabled us the viewport fit cover change up here in our index HTML. This enabled us to use an environment variable, and we're going to use this in our app TSX, which basically surrounds our application. So what we do in here, let's just remove this to see what happens. So we see it looks even more ugly. We're gonna set the padding top now, because that's what's kind of messed up here, to the environment value for safe area inset top. And once we do this, it immediately moves our application down. Now, if we still want a bit of margin in the application, no worries, we can still do this. Like 0, 1, 0, 1. This should just be to the sides, I guess. Yeah. So we didn't mess up anything. But this part wouldn't work if we hadn't added the viewport fit cover to our index HTML. So this part was really important. Okay. At this point, you got a native application, you got Capacitor, you could have access to all the native device functionalities using plugins if you wanted to. And our application looks quite horrible. So I want to show you another way that is pretty easy, which is the Ionic framework. If you're following this channel, you know that I'm kind of into Ionic, and I usually used Ionic with Angular. Now this time we're not using Ionic with React, because that would have set up a quite different project. And I know a lot of people just have a React project and want to go mobile. So we're taking the opposite approach. We're not adding we're not enabling React in an Ionic project. We're adding Ionic to a React project. That's like the opposite. And for this, we just need to install Ionic in our project. So let's do this. There's a specific package for Ionic React that we can install at Ionic React. And additionally, just because I like it, I recommend that we also install the Ionicons. Those are also created by the Ionic team, and the cool thing about these is that they are also adaptive to the platform, just like Ionic components, as we will see. That means they are also in different outline fill sharp versions available, that they can also look differently on Android and iOS. So we're going to install the Ionicons package as well. And with that in place, we're gonna add some cool changes. So let's open the login. Let's get the most out of our space here. Yeah, that was important. And then we're gonna do, where do we start? Maybe we can just rewrite this whole part here. So I'm not gonna call this main. What we're gonna do is instead we're gonna use an ion card. If you wanted to, you could also just check out the documentation and go to UI components, and you will find a bunch of components. Now, if you're not used to this, this is like, yeah, it's quite overwhelming. It's like when I check out Chakra UI or Material UI, it's always the same. You can think of these Ionic things as pretty much a UI, yeah, pretty much UI components. So let's just do a card, and there are examples for all the whatever you need. So where's the card? There's a card. This is an important test to see if it's actually working, and I assume that it's not working for a few reasons. Now, reason number one is that we still need to import all of these components one by one. I don't want to use subtitle. Let's just use the Ion card title and the Ion card content. There we go. Now, if we check out our application, it looks Well, it doesn't really look like anything that we want. The problem is that we haven't imported the right styling. And I'm just looking up quickly where we can get that styling, and we can add it simply to our app.tsx file. So put this once again here, and then I'm gonna add this up here. I'm gonna remove the app CSS because we don't really need this, but now we can take all the styling from the packages. Now what we see is that our page completely disappears. And I was kind of worried in the beginning that this is wrong, but no, this is fine because we still need to call setup Ionic React from the Ionic React package. Otherwise, you're just gonna see and inspect your web view and see that something is hidden. So this is the fix, setup Ionic React, and there we go. Now, this still doesn't really look like a card to me, most likely because, let me check this out, because also we haven't really used the styling variables. We should add a new file for that actually. So let's do this. Let's add a new folder. We'll call this theme. We're gonna add a new file, variables.css. And Ionic actually has at some place the color generator. So normally this is already shipped with an Ionic project. Otherwise we can just grab it from here. Let's put it in here, and for the app TSX, we should now also import the theme variables. But this is just about coloring. This actually shouldn't change anything regarding the Ion card. I assume that our application, well, could need a little reload or refresh at this point. So I'm gonna run the start command again because we install Ionic, and actually we can also, yeah, we do just a redeploy, but I also want to show you this on the browser. So there we go. Redeploy was fine, and we can now see the first cool thing about Ionic. On the right in the browser, we see an example of the card, how it will look like on Android. This here is the iOS simulator. It shows an iOS card, so there's a clear difference between those two. And that's for all Ionic components. They automatically adapt to the underlying platform, so they look great on iOS or Android. Okay, now to move forward, I just want to show you this dummy card. But now we're going to go into something real, which is the replacement of our original form. So for this, I just pretty much transformed everything that we had before into Ionic components. I'm wrapping everything inside an Ion card. How is this possible? My eyes, what's wrong? Like this should be here, and then we get this. Okay, we got the Ion card, which has some Ion card content, otherwise it has no padding if we don't use that. We still got our same form element like before, but then we got Ion items with Ion label, with a new position and a floating and the type. And then at this point we even have an Ion icon. And to use an Ion icon, we don't use the string name of an icon with React, but instead we import it like this. Like if we want to use the login icon, we looked it up here with Ionicons and found it somewhere. It usually shows the name, so it's pretty much just the name in camel case now. Now we got the login, and we can submit this login right here. And there we go. Our application now looks a lot cleaner. The labels are moving up because we're using floating. We could also use stacked for the email, so then it would be stacked all the time. But this is just talking about specificities or special cases of Ionic. Same here with the expand. You can look up all of these things for the components. And I don't expect you to understand what all of this does in the beginning, but I've been pretty much using Ionic UI for 5+ years at this point, so I completely know what's going on. So once again, for Android, items and stuff just looks different. If we want to give this actually a real native look, we could just go to the app. Let's do this. This would be funny. Let's go to our app TSX, and instead of having it look like this, we're gonna add an Ion. Let's just completely redo this. because not traditionally Ionic apps have a header area. So we would have something like an Ion header in here. And can you please just add the import? Thanks. And within the header, we have an Ion toolbar. So there's like a little school about Ionic. In case you didn't know, my school is the Ionic Academy. You should check it out. And then we got the Ion title, Simon's app. And you, of course, didn't add any kind of import React. Thanks. Okay. If we only do it like this, we got our header up here, and now we just add our outlet in here. No, I don't want this. I want it like that. Oh yeah, still need to surround it with a fragment. Sorry, and sorry React, that one was to me. And then we have a quite amazing login screen that looks completely like a mobile app. Okay, of course, for the web, this might not work completely for you. There would be a tiny bit of work to make this better. But with Ionic, you can build like amazing things in here. Also, what we haven't even touched yet is you can't even use the, or you're not limited, let's say it like this. You're not limited to those components, but you can actually use a few interesting hooks. So for example, let me bring in two interesting hooks. One is the use Ion alert, which is helps us to display a cool alert, and the other one is a loading. So I'm gonna get rid of this, and instead of using the set loading and set loading in here, we're gonna do something else. We're just gonna call present here. I don't know if present here also returns a promise, most likely. So let's put in message loading and close this. And does this return a promise? Yeah, it does. So let's await this. And if we're using the await keyword, we should also mark our function as an asynchronous function. And then we should probably at some point hide this, but let's first of all show it. Oh yeah, we should prevent the default before that part. There we go, our loading. But in the background, we're already doing the navigation. So let's call dismiss, which we also extracted from the use Ion loading hook. And additionally, I want to also show the alert view, but let's make this a quick one. Yeah, we'll just break the login for now. So I'm gonna add this in here and just show an alert, just to show you how easy it is to use certain things with Ionic. So because we added the loading, I'm now in a, oh yeah, I shouldn't have done this. This is like a bad thing about React now. I wasn't able to leave that. Do we dismiss the loading? And we just want to show it. Okay, we present it. We set a timeout. So let's see. Loading, 1.5 seconds, and an error. And now let's do the same here. And we see the loading already looks different and the error looks different as well. So once again, browser by default is taking Material Design for Android. And you can see the difference. We got iOS, which looks completely native to iOS, and we got Android, which looks pretty much native Android. And that's everything for now. I don't want to go into Capacitor functionality and more of Ionic, because this Ionic part was just a little addition. But I hope this gave you an impression of how fast you could be able to transform your React web application with Capacitor into a mobile application. And you're not just limited to a regular React application. I'm going to show you how to do this with Next.js or Vue.js in the future as well. Because pretty much Capacitor is just too easy these days, and it brings a lot of benefits to the development of mobile applications based on the web code of your application. Alright, and that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this kind of quick introduction to some basics of React, and on top how you can transform your existing React application with Capacitor into a native container. There's so much more that you can do with both Capacitor and Ionic that we haven't touched, so if you got any questions about Capacitor, native plugins, Ionic styling, combination with React, please drop a comment below and let me know what you would like to see in an upcoming video on this channel. And please, most importantly, don't forget to hit the subscribe icon and also the like so you get notified about all the upcoming videos on this channel. I've been Simon and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial about building a React Native, well, I can't say this, right? React Native app, but it is a native app built on React, so I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on building a React web native application, and I'm certainly gonna catch you next week. So until then, happy coding, Simon.